We are lucky to have Wojciech Sniegowski here with us. He
one in a million, yeah?
Yes, 1 in a million, and one of only 34 citizenship judges across Canada. So can you tell us a little bit about what it means to be a citizenship judge? What is that job?
Well, the title is a little bit deceiving because, we don't have to be a lawyer actually to be a citizenship judge. It's just a title I think that was left from the old times, because way back when actual judges were giving citizenship titles to new immigrants. And the only qualification back then was good character.
What does that mean?
Well, I don't even know. It would probably, unfortunately, was depending on the judge, and probably if you didn't have a criminal record and stuff like that. I would assume. I'm not too familiar with the qualifications back then, but that was the only qualification, and the interpretation of it probably was with the individual judge.
So, what does being a judge mean now?
It's not only ceremonial like many people think. We had a very significant role during the evaluation of the application for citizenship. Virtually every file had to be signed by one of the judges. Mm-hmm. So it means that it has to be looked at. And basically I thought this was not a bad system, because it was like a second pair of eyes that looking at, and so it was easy to maybe sometimes find some deficiencies. That has changed with the new bill. Right now we only analyze files that have problems identify whether they stay long enough in Canada to apply for citizenship. So those are complicated cases. We have to write decisions whether we approve or disapprove the file, and those decisions then have to withstand the scrutiny of the federal court, because the applicant, if they're not happy, or department too, yes. They can actually send the appeal to the federal court, and then the federal court will decide whether we made a proper decision.
Is that the biggest part of your job, or is the ceremonial piece?
Well, I think it's sort of equal right now. Our role actually contains three obligations, and one is a ceremonial, presiding over ceremonies. One, that what I said, conducting the hearings to try to determine whether people meet the requirement of residence. And the third one is to promote citizenship, because there's quite a big number of people who are not really eager to apply for citizenship as soon as they qualify. Mm-hmm. For very different reasons. But it is sad that they don't do this, because sometimes they ending up in big trouble when they leave the country and they don't have a passport, and their passport is not valid. For example, with Polish people who live in Canada, quite a few people who are here had old passports, and those passports do not allow you to come to Canada without a visa. So imagine you're going to Dominican Republic and you can't come back, for example. Yeah. And I've heard of situations like that. And you can get really in serious problems. If you then, there is a way of coming back, but it's complicated. You have to go to Haiti, actually, to the consulate, and try to get back. They are not the easiest to cooperate, so sometimes you may stay for another week. And if you had vacation for a week and you didn't, so it's costly and it's really problematic. And then when you neglect, and when you let back to Canada, then they're gonna investigate whether you really live here. And if you neglect that part and don't provide proper documents, you may be actually deported. So it is very important, I think, even for practical reasons, to apply for citizenship, because once you're a citizen, none of those problems you will encounter.
There is so interesting what you are saying, because there is a lot of talking about people who really want to come to Canada only to get a Canadian passport, and they have no intention basically to live here. There is a lot of criticism.
Yes, unfortunately, that's also the case, and that's hence why our role as a judge is so important right now, because we are dealing with this, and we're trying to investigate and somehow determined based on the hearing and on the documents that are available, whether somebody is really here or just pretends to be here. Because exactly, you're right. There are a group of people who, for example, they set their families here, and they actually work in the Middle East somewhere where they make a lot of money and they don't pay any taxes. and their children are taking advantage of our educational system and medical system without ever really contributing anything in the form of taxes by the parents. And what is really interesting is that once they receive the citizenship, those people who work there, their salary is bumped by 20 to 30% just because of the fact that they are citizens of North America now. Because of that, there's a strong motivation for a lot of people to try to pretend to be here. So they have, unfortunately, unscrupulous advisors who would tell them how to create a false presence in Canada. So sometimes it's a very difficult positions that we are in, because we have to try to determine who is telling the truth, because the documentation is quite often falsified to a certain extent. For example, you can have credit card and let this credit card being used by somebody else, right? And you document that you spend money here. So you have to look at a lot of factors. So it's sort of complex thing, and we're trying to do the best we can. Canada also is trying to sort of close a lot of loopholes. They're working on a exit control. So probably next year we're going to see that people will be because right now you can leave Canada without ever talking to anybody. So since the passports are not stamped regularly for different reasons, you can have, for example, access cards. Like, for example, for Dubai, they have access cards. So the passport is never stamped. You just slide the card in and out. So you don't even know when somebody left, when they're coming back. It's very difficult. But Canada is in cooperation with the United States. They are trying to get this exit and control in place, so there's actually a data that we can then ask the applicant to provide to us, because the laws of privacy, because some people may think that, well, government knows everything. No, it's not, because we cannot exchange information between the departments unless there's a special kind of agreement, and usually that's not the case. So usually when we want more documentation, we have to ask the applicant for him to give us a permission to ask. So it is the protection. There's a huge protection of the rights of people in Canada, of citizens and permanent residents, and we have to find ourselves in this. So that becomes challenging at times.
Yeah. So what does it take to become a citizen then? What are the requirements at the moment?
This is a political nomination.
Yes.
So actually you have to somehow be known by the minister who is responsible for the department, because that's the minister is proposing the nomination, and then it has to go to the Privy Council, and the Prime Minister has to actually read the names of people nominated. But usually the recommendation of minister are treated seriously and usually are approved. So you have to be known to the minister somehow. But from what I noticed the government is trying actually to have a good representation of people from different ethnic groups. There is also, I think, certain consideration given to gender, given how many female judges we have. I think that they are trying to be really thorough in finding people who they think will be able to handle this, because there's a sort of steep curve in education, legal issues at the beginning. So you have to be somewhat capable person, but you don't have to be a lawyer. And although we are actually right now, there's quite a few lawyers who are.
What it takes to be a Canadian citizen? What are the requirements, the basic requirements that need to be met for somebody to become?
The problem with definitions right now is that the new law will change that. And I don't want to talk about what's going to be changed, because the changes of some of those requirements will not happen till next summer. And the dates are unknown yet. But they will be sort of more stringent than they are so far. Right now, today, if somebody wants to apply for citizenship, Canadian citizenship, they have to live in Canada for at least 3 years, 10,095 days. There's a dispute to whether the residence means physical presence or not. And unfortunately, there was a different precedent set that giving it different meaning. But lately, federal court is standing on the position that it should be a physical presence. On top of that, you have to pass the exam from about the knowledge of Canada. It's in form of a multiple choice test. It's much more demanding than when I started, and I'm in the 5th year, so it's not that long. But during the time, I witnessed a lot of changes within the department. And I think that to satisfaction of most Canadians, it is harder to become a Canadian. And I think the most important difference is in the language. It used to be level 2. So basically, if you could just say a few words, you were considered to be worthy of becoming a citizen. And right now you have to be level 4. So basically, we have to be able to form full sentences using connecting words and proper verb tense. That's what it means. And I think that's actually right, because with citizenship we get the rights, like for example voting, right to vote. If you don't speak English, how can you choose then rationally your leaders and people who represent you? So I personally think that this is a great thing. And I think majority of Canadians would agree that citizens should be able to communicate in one of the official languages, and because it's either French or English.
I actually have a friend who just had her swear-in ceremony about a month ago or so. Crystal Marie, she was very excited. She shared the news with all of her friends. She's very pleased, and actually a colleague of mine now is going to write her exam next week. So she's close to the process, and she again shared the news with everybody. Very, very happy, very excited about it. Do you have any positive stories to share? Anything you've witnessed throughout? Because I know firsthand some people who are extremely proud and happy to.
Well, listen, yes, we talked about some people who are trying just to use Canada, but I honestly believe that the vast majority of people really are excited about becoming Canadians. I think that the fact that those expectations have rose a little, and then now we have this understanding of English and knowledge of Canada. The booklet that is now available, it covers not only history, it covers not only sort of political geography of Canada, but also the institution, like government institution. And I think that's a very important thing. A lot of new Canadians come from countries when they don't have access to political officials, like to members of parliament. To them, it's just totally inaccessible. And yet, I think that in here, I know members of parliament and members of provincial legislature or even city councils, they are open to contact with public. And so it's important for them, for example, to understand which government is responsible for what.
Yes.
If you need to go for help, you need to know where. So I think that that's a very beneficial, and sometimes, unfortunately, I think during the ceremony I open the eyes of new Canadians to some of those implications, but majority of people, I think, are very appreciative. They love this country, honestly. And I know not the worst in any way citizen than those who were born here, because they actually made a choice and they chose this country. And I understand how difficult life may be in other countries, especially the people who come from the countries where the conflict is brewing, where you can actually lose your life. I think they are the most appreciative. But I had a situation in which when I was still doing language and knowledge, and I used to give them my decision right away. Yes. I had some people crying and of joy, really, having tears of joy, because they really, to them, becoming a Canadian citizen was the most important thing in their life that ever happened. And I have this sentiment sometimes expressed during the ceremonies as well, up to today. Although usually people don't want to, talk about their feelings and stuff. They're rather reserved and a little bit afraid of what's going on and stuff. You have to understand that a lot of people, especially from those third world countries or Southeast Asia, for example, to them, judge is somebody extremely powerful, and they actually have a fear of judges. And then sometimes it's almost impossible to dispel that. That's so deeply enrooted in them.
I don't think you look that scary.
Yeah, I know. That's what I usually ask, and because that's what I usually ask, and then because I'm trying to sort of soften the effect. And during the ceremony, I'm trying to make this a light ceremony, but also to point out important things. And what it's really scary, I think, but I think it wouldn't be much different if this was probably asked at the university, the same question, because I asked them at some point, who here is interested in politics? And out of 100 people, because that's the usual size of the ceremony that I preside over, maybe 4 or 5 hands would rise. That's the most. Sometimes none, sometimes one. And so there's total misunderstanding what politics is. And then I go into what really means that, if you say that you're not interested in politics, you may as well go home, give the keys to your neighbor, and say, from now on, you decide the most important things in my life. Because exactly that's the same thing. Somebody will go to those elections, somebody will make decisions, and you will have to live with the consequences of those decisions. And people don't understand how profoundly politics affects our lives. And that's why I think that's a very important thing. And I don't want to bet, of course, but I'm pretty sure that if you go to any university and ask the same questions, it will be the same result. Going to to vote is not just about electing somebody, because sometimes, and then, many people say, well, one vote doesn't matter, why would you even bother, right? But that's not the truth. The fact is that after the election, the major political parties will try to ascertain who participated in election. And they're going to generate all kinds of statistics based on the ethnicity, based on gender, based on geographical locations, because they want to discover where are the votes. The theory goes, and I totally agree with this theory, that, it's easier to change somebody's mind who to vote for than make them go to vote in the first place. That's what people have to understand, that by voting, it doesn't matter who they voted for, whether the candidate won or lost, doesn't really matter. It matters they were there. Because the political party will address those groups who are the most active. And they're going to try to, generate the candidates from this group. They're going to listen to their concern. They're going to try to address their concern. And I think most of Canadians born here don't understand that, not to mention about the new ones.